You're listening to the Downshift podcast, taking you trackside for all things motorsport. We're four mates from Melbourne breaking down the races, the drama, and everything in between, all with a little banter and a lot of passion. If you love motorsport and cars as much as we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you're always on the grid with us. And if you really want to join the team, leave us a 5-star review. So it's lights out, drop the clutch, and let's get racing. Hello and welcome to the Downshift podcast as four mates from Australia review the Formula One, all the action on and off the track and the drama that goes with it. We're coming into a non-race weekend as we prepare for Miami the weekend after. So we thought it was a great opportunity to start to look at the Drivers' Championship as it's shaping up after 5 races, as we've seen a change to the lead with Oscar Piastri now 10 points ahead of his teammate Lando Norris after taking out the win for Saudi Arabia. So having a look at that, Happy, what were your thoughts in regards to the move for Oscar?
Oscar done very, very well. First time in 18 years since we've had an Aussie at the top of the standings. He drove just a clinical, measured race, didn't make mistakes in quali. So looking really strong at the moment. And it also, his win on the weekend at Jeddah gave him 5 total wins. I think it's taken him 55 Grand Prix, I think, to get 5 wins.
Pretty impressive.
Yeah, very impressive. And compared to Lando, it's taken him 140 Grand Prix to get to 5 wins. So they're now equal on wins, and Oscar feels like he's got some good momentum. Lando making a few little mistakes. So it's definitely a very competitive Drivers' Championship at the moment. It's only 5 rounds in. We've got quite a few to go, but off to a very solid start for McLaren and a fantastic start for Oscar.
Well, I think we've discussed it before, but you're going to see, seems like Oscar just, like you said, clinical before, and he just is neat and tidy, gets it done without a lot of fanfare. I mean, there's memes going around about this as, the 8 moods of Oscar Piastri, and they're all the same photo. But, he's still yet to, get to greatness, but he's well on the way. But, I think that when they look back at him, they'll just be, he just got the job done. Just did it. Just did it clean.
Well, he's Mr. Consistent.
No doubt about his raw speed and his talent. And as Webber was saying, Mark Webber, who was the last Aussie to lead the championship, ironically, is now his manager. Webber pointed out that he's just been improving every year and that he could be considered a number 1 driver in that team, if not now, very soon in the future, the way he's going.
The commentators asked on the weekend, there was a chat about it, and they go, are they, you're in line for the Drivers' Championship? And he's like, we're starting there already, are we?
It's a long way away, yeah.
But he is cool, calm and collected. And I think from that perspective, if you see the trajectory of Oscar in regards to his development, you've got to remember this is his 3rd year in as a Formula One driver. When he started in year 1, he had trouble with tyre management. And so that was what he was learning. Came into year 2 and he'd nailed tyre management. He really got his head around it and was just showing that improvement. And then last year, it was pace. And so you see over the summer, he's come back after the summer. And while he was noticeably slower than Lando in 2024, this year they are neck and neck. So there's not a lot that's separating the two of them. Lando might still have just a little bit of pace on Oscar, but again, not able to convert that to results. And if we look in regards to we're 5 races in, Lando has won 1, Oscar has won 3 now. So from that perspective, he's showing that he is definitely performing within the team.
We haven't really seen friction yet. Although both drivers are competitive, they're both doing well. Zach is smiling like a Cheshire cat because their team is at the top of the standings. Momentum's on their side. We've seen what can happen in the past. Like you think of Hamilton and Rosberg, that got very, very competitive. Weber and Vettel in Red Bull.
Senna, Prost in McLaren.
Exactly. So you can certainly end up in a situation where drivers who did get along, and in the case of Hamilton and Rosberg, are best friends when they were younger, really didn't talk to each other. They were pretty much enemies in that team and on the track because they were so committed to trying to win the World Championship.
Is this probably one of the first teams we've seen with 2 real top drivers? Like I know you've had, you had Max and just say Daniel Ricciardo, like they were both good drivers, but clearly one was better. And a lot of the teams are like that. I mean, Carlos and Leclerc were fairly close, but yeah.
They're not very close. But if you look at Ricciardo versus Verstappen, Ricciardo had the edge on him initially in that team. So he was in a situation at Red Bull where Red Bull knew that Max was the future of the team. So Ricciardo opted to leave. He got a great offer from Renault. It was some big money. But he performed really well that season. It was very close and very competitive. Will we see that sort of competitiveness between the two drivers? They've done the right thing so far in the last season or two in like giving up positions, swapping positions when the teams ask them to. They've both played by the team rules, papaya rules, but it's culminated recently in Oscar and I think Mark Webber stating publicly that they really want equal treatment and equal machinery and upgrades in the team, because it sounds like in the past, Oscar hasn't necessarily got car upgrades as quickly as Lando has for the past couple of years.
And you mentioned Mark Webber in regards to being Oscar's manager. And I mean, Mark Webber famously quoted for being not bad for a number 2 driver, but Oscar's got a great team around him. So you've got Mark, who's the consummate professional and a serious competitor. He's also got his race engineer, Tom Stellard, who's a Olympic rower. So, and he's all about performance and development and is the head of human performance within McLaren's. To have that team around you and supporting you, I think is going to be a great advantage to Oscar as he's showing performance, and whether or not the team sticks with the 2 number 1 drivers or has to make a decision.
I think your point about Mark Webber is a good one, because Mark's been through the multi-21 saga at Red Bull. He's been that, the number 2 driver who's achieved results and was maybe a bit of a thorn in the side, for Verstappen and his corner of that team. Mark is very vocal. He's very well known. He's got a public face. He still gets involved, I think, in some commentary here and there and appearances and media. So he knows what situation Oscar could be in if he's treated like the second driver. So we know he will be campaigning very hard to make sure that Oscar has the chance to have equal machinery, same upgrades at the same time as Lando, so that they don't play favourites, because it's obviously within Mark's interest that Oscar, wins a world title and does well. But I think Oscar's lucky to have Mark in his corner for that reason.
You say that he's still got his face out there, mate. Well, he's on David Coulthard's podcast the other week, and his 2 biggest chins in the Formula One paddock went on the same screen there. Definitely he's still got his face out there, that's for sure. Don't worry about that.
Yeah, but Jos Verstappen's just Max's dad, and Jos is not a manager. He doesn't have that sort of influence, I think. And he hasn't, although he was a racer, he didn't go through all that Red Bull situation that Mark's been through. And Jos doesn't have to campaign for Max, because Max is clearly the number 1 driver in that team. It's up to Yuki to try and, make sure he has equal machinery and the same sort of upgrades in that car. But yes, it'll be interesting to see.
That's chalk and cheese.
Yeah,
there's no way that you can compare Yuki and Max versus Norris and Piastri at the minute.
Yeah. But so hypothetically, McLaren they're rushing some upgrades through. They think they're going to have an upgrade to a floor, which is going to give them another 1/10 of a second a lap, which is like a decent upgrade. And they've only got 1 floor. Who do they give it to next week in Miami? Have a look at the recent results. Like KT said, we've got 3 wins on Oscar's side of the camp. Virtually no mistakes. Well, you'd have to give that to Oscar, wouldn't you?
No. You have to give it to Lando. He needs all the help he can get.
Well, if you look at the drivers' standings right now, there's 27 points separating the top 4 drivers for the championship. So it is that close at the top that who does McLaren end up picking? Because, they're 10 points separating the top 2 drivers, and Max is 2 points behind Lando.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, McLaren is interested in one thing, and that is the Constructors' Championship, which they are comfortably leading at the moment.
Very comfortably.
If they're comfortably leading that, then it probably doesn't matter which driver they give the upgrade to from a constructor's point of view. So the next best thing would be, okay, well, let's give it to the driver who we think has the best chance of winning the world title. So if they think it's a 1/10 upgrade a lap, surely you'd give it to Oscar. But these are the sorts of scenarios that teams go through all the time in the background. When upgrades come out, there might be limited numbers of them. They have to pick and choose which driver gets them, and teams will sometimes play favourites and sometimes may not. But that's the sort of scenario that McLaren could well and truly end up finding themselves in.
And Oscar being such a nice guy,
and this is where against him? I don't think so. I mean, I think from that perspective is Oscar's now showing that he's He's a contender. He's actually making comments, and we saw that in Jeddah, he was actually being a lot more forthright and on the radio. To Tuppy's point, is now saying that I would like equal consideration for us as drivers. And you see Mark Webber, who's talking to Zach. To your point on Max, you've got Raymond. Now I'm going to get it wrong because I get it wrong every time. Who is it?
So one more question.
We all know how good your pronunciation is of.
Look at
does he live in Sakia?
Yeah, probably. So, Raymond, I apologise, but you will have seen Raymond was actually talking to Helmut and Christian at the podium, and there's quite an animated conversation around that. So the managers are there working for the driver to get the best for the driver, to be able to push the cause and to work that behind the scenes. So I think that's where Mark will actually play a really big role in this.
Yeah. Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 rounds. If Oscar's got a good break over Lando by mid-season, then surely McLaren's going to have to pick a favourite and get Lando to help Oscar, and that would be a big dynamic change in that team, because Lando was their little golden boy. He was their driver that they bet the future on in a way, and Oscar was only really available because Alpine hadn't actually signed a proper contract with him. They stuffed up, and McLaren jumped at the opportunity to get a winner of F2, a winner of F3. He's won everything he's been in. Like, Oscar was one of the best potential talent. So they snapped him up as an opportunity. He wasn't put in that team as the long-term bet, but what do you know? Maybe he could become that, and maybe Lando could be the expendable one at the end of the season. So
feels like that little bit of extra pressure on Lando's just, you can see a little bit creeping in here and there, I think. And I think maybe, the wall at Jeddah, just little things about the way he drives.
You saying there's cracks appearing, Dan?
Cracks is probably not the right word, but just I think he's just probably getting a little bit under pressure and maybe a bit sort of thrown a bit by the extra sort of, because he probably didn't think he had to think about this. Go, you know what, I'm just going to have a number 2 driver who's just going to pull the ropes and, finish top 10 with me or top 5 with me, back me up, and he'll give me some clean air when I need it. He'll defend when I need him to defend. But then all of a sudden now he's going, well, hang on, he's doing that, and then I need some clear air at the side on the track. So I've been pulled into pits to give him some clear air to, do the other side of things. So probably not maybe what he's expecting that he was going to do this year.
I think one incident is probably not cracks appearing, but it's rare that a driver at the top of the standings, like a Hamilton or a Verstappen or a Norris, makes mistakes or errors like that when they should know better. It was a mistake that cost him potentially 10 starting positions and a win in that race. So that could have cost him 25 points, which is a massive chunk of points when you're fighting for the championship. So if he makes another mistake like that in the next few rounds and Oscar continues to go well, then I would 100% say the pressure is getting to Lando, and he needs to get his stuff together and get it sorted out, because...
So his pit entry and exit at Jeddah, the exit of which was under review. I mean, he was pushing... Yeah. To be fair, he was pushing hard to catch up from a P10.
Yeah, every driver's going to push the limits, and quite often they'll lock up coming into the pits or whatever. He did. He took it to the limit. He's lucky he didn't go over. It might have cost him more positions. But again, if he had have done that, you would have, again, classed that as an error. Like, that's not a situation where you're trying to gain positions. You don't need to take unnecessary risk. You just want to maximize points. You don't have to. You're not trying to get out of the pits to beat Max Verstappen, who's going to be side by side with you for first position in the race. You just want to get in, get out cleanly, neatly, don't make a mistake, maximize points. So, yeah, I don't know, maybe he is trying to push a little bit too hard at the moment, and that's got to be pressure from Oscar and Max.
And you make a really good point, Schwags, and we talk about the mental toughness. And so if we look at the 3 top drivers, you've got Oscar, Lando and Max, who all have a very different approach to their racing style. We've talked about Oscar being Mr. Calm, Cool and Collected, and so Oscar seems completely unrattled when something goes wrong. We saw this in Melbourne when he had the slip in the wet where he went off into the grass, and most drivers would just throw their hands up and say, sorry, I'm done. He stopped, thought about it for a split second, put it in reverse, backed it out, got back and was able to finish the race with some points. Whereas you look at Lando, and as Lando for last year, as he was being interviewed, he'd beat himself up. He actually goes into a mental spiral where he is hard on himself. And I think that's where it takes away his confidence as he's going through and do that. And whereas Max, you're seeing Max who is just clinical and arrogant in regards to his approach. And I know, Happy, you and I have had the conversation many a time that you need to have a bit of in you to be able to be a world champion. And that's Max, what Max has got. He will push it to the limit. He will take advantage of the rules to the nth degree to win.
Yeah. And look, at any high level sport, your mental state is so important. Like your psychological state when you go into a race, how you process things, the decisions you make, it's very, very important. And Lando, for one, has been open in the past about struggling occasionally with some depression and anxiety and so on. So that's something that he has worked on, which I think is why he does come across occasionally as negative post-race. But then every driver does, right? It's all about how you recover from that, put it in the back of your mind, and get out there and perform again the next week to the best of your abilities. Most drivers will have coaches, or psychological coaches, who will they can talk to about how to maintain that sort of peak mental acuity, the best state of mind to get out there and succeed. I'm sure Lando has one. Oscar probably does as well. If not, it's probably just Mark Webber kicking him in the ass every time he gets in the car and off he goes and gets the job done.
Whatever works, mate. Whatever works.
Good old Aussie tough love. So with that, obviously we've got, as Lockie was saying, with the top 5 drivers there, not separated by a lot. Any thoughts on some of the other drivers as we're looking at the top 5 after 5 races?
From my point, probably the one to watch at the moment is going to be Charles. I think you might find he might pop up the stand in the next couple of races as well. I think probably from that, you got Antonelli and Hamilton. I don't think Hamilton's going to have the best season this year. I think he's still coming to grips with that car. I reckon it's probably going to take him at least another half a season to get that car championship standing this time will be done. Antonelli is another one. I think this season he's having a fantastic season. I think next season will be a chance for him to climb even further up the rankings from that one. But I reckon that the 5 at the minute, Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Russell and Leclerc, that's going to be your top 5. It'll be where they can come into it. I think you'll find possibly Verstappen, Russell and Leclerc will be fighting for that 3rd spot at the minute.
I think Lewis Hamilton's probably the disappointing one, sitting in there in 7th. I thought he would have been higher up. I think the Ferrari's still got a lot of potential improvement this season. And the other story is Yuki Tsunoda down there in 5th, while Max Verstappen is sitting in 2nd place with 87 points. Yuki's only got 5. So I know obviously Yuki didn't get to race the first number of races in the season, so he could have accumulated some more points there, but that's also a situation where I think Lawson at the moment must be a bit frustrated that, they've put another driver in to the Red Bull car and he's not performing either. Like, he's had some bad luck, but he's had some accidents and mistakes and struggled to find pace as well. But yeah, I think Hamilton is a bit of a surprise. I was surprised that he wasn't sort of around that sort of 5th or 6th place at least by this stage of the season.
Well, we all had him in our predictions for the championship, finishing in the top 5. So, from that perspective,
exactly.
We all thought that he was going to do a lot better than he's doing.
Pretty much sums all of our predictions up then, doesn't it?
But I agree with Lockie. I think Verstappen is obviously doing very well in 3rd at the moment. Russell and Leclerc are probably the 2 to put some pressure on him if they can. Leclerc's nearly half the points of Verstappen at the moment, so he's got a bit of catching up to do in that Ferrari. But Russell's just been a quiet, consistent achiever in that Mercedes. So if Mercedes can unlock a little bit more pace, you've got a good pairing there in Russell and Antonelli doing well. But yeah, I think Max is still looking like he could be 3rd in the championship this year if he can keep a form up.
No doubt it's a pretty tight setup in the top anyway, between those 5 drivers.
So, Happy, you've given us a really nice segue in regards to Red Bull. So we've obviously seen Red Bull who have struggled at the start of the year. We've had Lawson who hasn't been able to perform. We've seen Japan, Yuki Tsunoda subbed in, and it's been announced that he will race the Red Bull for the rest of the season. Have Red Bull solved their driver challenge? Your thoughts are that they haven't, Happy?
No. And I don't think they can. I think 2026 will be their year of focus, whatever they can get out of Yuki. I think, look, with Yuki and Liam, They wanted a driver who could at least contribute to points and help them with a constructors title or a second place in constructors championship, for example. And they want to see growth from those drivers as well. So whatever new driver they want to stick in, they just want to see improvement throughout the year. So at the moment, from what we've all read, Yuki's got that car till the end of the year. That's the commitment. He would have been stupid to try and get any other sort of deal. We should have walked in and said, it has to be for the entire season or I won't do it. Hopefully he gets a bit better. Like we can see in the stats, like, you know, he's qualified a fair way behind Max. Jeddah was a little bit closer, but it's not quite as technical, that track. So I would have expected him to maybe be a little bit closer. The whole field was actually very close in qualifying at Jeddah. I think that in Q1, I think the top 15 cars were within 9/10 of each other. So it was a very tight field. So
to be fair, Yuki will be the number one driver next season when Max goes to Aston Martin anyway, and then he'll have someone come slot underneath him. So,
yeah, possibly.
It's a fair point, Lockie. I mean, you know, the thing is that we're hearing the rumor and scuttle, but where there's smoke, there's fire. And so all these conversations are being had. And, you know, if Max is not happy at the moment, Red Bull are not able to deliver him a car. And if he's thinking that there's a better program or better option for him in 2026, and we're seeing Aston Martin throwing ridiculous sums of money in regards to not only Max, but allegedly. But I'm not saying just Max, but you know, you're looking at £200 million in regards to the new campus with the wind tunnel. Seeing he's gone across to Aston Martin. You've got Andy Cowell now as the team principal. Aston Martin's shaping up as a dark horse for 2026. And so, you know, Max could see that as an opportunity. He wants to get into other race formats as well. And there's programs that Aston Martin would support and will support with him. Absolutely. To your point, Huppy, on Yuki, though, I mean, this is where, yes, he's not getting the points at the moment. And look, I think to be a little bit fair to Yuki at the same time, he didn't have testing at the start of the year in the Red Bull. He's had to wait until Japan. So he's missed the first two races of the season. Qualified 15th in Japan, and he was just under a second behind Max in qualifying. He finished 12th. Bahrain, he qualified P10. That was 1.3 seconds behind Max, but finished 9th. Obviously, Jeddah was a bit unfortunate that he had the DNF with Gasly, but again, he qualified P8, and that was 7 positions behind Max. And to your point about it being so close, that was under half a second. So while he's not performing fantastically at the moment, I'd say that he's doing better than Lawson, and you know, apart from a couple of unfortunate incidents, there's the potential for him to start to bring in some points.
Yeah, and Yuki's had 2 races now, and Lawson had 3, right? Yuki's had 3 races, is he?
3 races, yeah.
Correct, yeah. Okay. Lawson did Australia and China, and then they brought Yuki in for his home race in Japan.
Already, radio, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I hear he's getting some testing in an old car coming up between maybe the next race too.
He's off to Silverstone now.
They'll do what they can to help him out, because it's worth it. Like, you know, the difference between second in the championship and third is around $10 million US, something to that effect. And I think third to fourth is about $8 million US. So, you know, spend £1 million to do, you know, a bunch of test days in an older car might be well worth the payoff if they can maintain or improve their constructors position.
They have to make it work with Yuki because they can't go anywhere else.
Well, yeah, they're going to look stupid if they try anything.
Where are they going
else.
to go to get another driver who's driven a Red Bull, who's even close to what they need them to be to start all over again?
Yeah, that's right. You can't see Perez coming back, and they'd have to go into their driver pool or somewhere else. It'll just be a world of pain. So, yeah,
and none of their other rookies are of age yet. So, I mean, you know, the rest of their development drivers haven't turned 18 yet, so they're not going to be able to step into the car. I think the closest driver in the second half of the season that he turns 18 and would actually be able to jump in the car. And again, you're going to throw a rookie into a car which is unmanageable.
You've got to put them in the racing bulls. You can't chuck them in that thing.
Yeah, so let's just see how Yuki goes for the next 2 or 3 rounds or till halfway through the season. And he's on 5 points at the moment. You know, if he can pick up another 3, 4, 5, 6 points a race, maybe more, between now and the mid-season break, I think Red Bull would class that as a success for the moment.
So one of the other points just to have a look at is talking about points and penalty points. All the drivers receive penalties for incidents that are on the track, which go towards their driver's license. So as we're looking through that, Lockie, I know you were looking at the drivers with the points that they've actually got against their names at the moment and where that sits.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting that Max Verstappen actually has the most at the minute, sitting on 8 points at the moment. Now, he's got 2 points that will expire at the end of June, which will bring him back to 6, but given he's only got 12 points in total, if they have a couple more screw-ups, it could be quite challenging for him before the mid part of the season as well. Liam Lawson has already accumulated 5 points for the seasons thus far, and then you've got multiple drivers on 4 points, being Hulkenberg, Doohan and Piastri, and then Ocon, Norris, Saints are on 3 points. But yeah, probably the big concern would be the fact that Max is sitting there on 8 points at the moment.
So
and a couple more small screw-ups.
What is the limit, and what happens when you hit the limit?
So 12 points is the limit, and you actually have your license suspended, which basically what that means is you have to sit out for one race, and then your license comes back in, reset to 0, and off you go again.
So I think the last person that this happened to was Magnussen.
Yeah, it was actually last year. Magnussen hit 12 points. I think it was in October, November last year. It had to sit out the race, hit his 12 points, and then to have it reset after that.
We'll see. If Max keeps driving off the track and trying to claim corners he didn't make, then he may well get to 12 points.
Well, and I'm just doing some very quick research here because just one of my big predictions was that Max would lose his have his license suspended before Silverstone. His new baby is due on the 6th of May, so it may even be that he might miss Miami
off for that.
or Emilia Romagna for that. So we might see Max for a couple of races potentially.
If he loses sleep, having to feed a baby at 3 a.m, this could cause some problems. I can't imagine Max doing that.
Well, no, he sim races at 3 a.m.
I don't think his partner would be happy if he was sim racing instead of feeding the kid.
I'm fairly sure that they might have a nanny on his salary.
Yes.
Oh well, that's all for us to keep an eye on and see what happens over the coming few races. Unfortunately, no race this weekend as we do have a break with all the drivers moving from Jeddah to Miami. So we're seeing all the logistics to get across to Miami in the next 2 weeks. So we'll be back next week with a review of preview of the Miami Grand Prix, which will be the 2nd to the 4th of May. So until then, remember to subscribe to the podcast so that you can get the next episode when it drops, and we'll see you on the next lap. That's the checkered flag for this episode of the Downshift. Thanks for tuning in and hanging out with us in the paddock. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe so you never miss a lap. And hey, if we've earned it, drop us a 5-star review. It really helps us climb the grid and reach more motorsport fans. Until next time, keep it fast, keep it fun, and we'll catch you on the next lap.